You know what game is Gamer Uno? You know, if you play it like a gamer. So if you see a copy of Yahtzee, basically that is a box with 5 dice in it. And there are things you can do with 5 dice that are pretty cool. I don't even know if we ever played that rule. And potentially with that, it could go on forever. Welcome to episode 4, 280. Snap, 4 out of 10. Slightly better than average kids' rite of passage type game. I wouldn't play this as an adult. Someone's probably going to get hurt. Little kids are a bit more flexible than adults and probably less physical force involved. You can play this with pretty much any deck of cards, any card game with multiples of the same card in it. Scrabble Slam, as it was when I had my copy. Apparently it's also known as Scrabble Slam, which is kind of a little bit boring, really. I mean, there's enough Scrabble type games out there. Why not have another Boggle game? You start with 4 letters out and you just got to add a card and make a new 4-letter word. Not particularly interesting. I was just getting back into board games and I think we had Agricola and we had Alumbra, looking for other things, not really quite sure where to go with the hobby. Saw this one, at the time seemed to be new. Didn't play it very often. There were a bunch of these sort of tie-in games that were like card game versions of the bigger games from time to time. It's a game. It's okay. 4 out of 10. 6 out of 10. This is a game I would play. Everyone wants to say XYZ game is Gamer Uno. You know what game is Gamer Uno? If you play it like a gamer. This game can be strategic. According to the official rules, you're supposed to play to 500 points. Almost nobody knows how the scoring system works in Uno, and actually we used to play with a variant anyway. It's a good game for playing 2 or 3 hands, and who cares about keeping track of the score game to game? You just play out a hand, maybe play another one, maybe play a third one, put it away. I have played this game in a tent. I've played this game on a bus. I've played this game sitting around a lounge room with like 10 people. It's only supposed to go to like 8 apparently. I'll just say 10 players. Okay, community says to 8. Best with 6 or 4. It's best with 2 or 3 actually. I remember playing this when I was like about 9 years old. In my early 20s, 2021, I had a couple of friends and we used to sit around playing this and talking and drinking tea until midnight. And I don't even know if we bothered keeping score then either. When I was 24, I used to play this with my fiance all the time. When I was in my 30s, I went through that LCD phase that I mentioned earlier, buying all these electronic games. A whole bunch of them came out, had something similar to this. It did not have the cover. It was black and white. I can't even remember how it used to indicate what the colours were. But I used to be able to beat the AI all the time. I don't think the AI was not making really, really dumb moves. The AI was decent. Probably there are better strategies even than that, but it is a game that you can be strategic about what cards you hold back, when to play. Sometimes you'll pick up a card even if you could play a card. Keeping track of what cards other people are playing, playing high value cards ahead of low value cards or whatnot. It's a game that I played in my early 40s with my children. It's a game that I would play now. If someone walked in with this game to a gaming group, I would play a game, but I would not play to 500 points, and I very much doubt that very many people do anyway. Yahtzee. Yahtzee is a commercial version of a public domain game called Yacht, and you'll see a lot of apps, websites, whatever will have some implementation of this that has some twist on the term yacht or whatever without using the actual Yahtzee name. This is basically a solo game. You take it in turns to play a solo game. You roll the dice, you work out a score, you fill in your sheet. It's one of the first roll and write games. And it's actually not too bad. The strategy of it is interesting. Once or twice every few years I'll play a game of Yahtzee in some form or another. A lot of electronic versions have triple Yahtzee where you have 3 scoring columns and you're trying to gives you a bit more choice to split over the different games. You're essentially playing 3 games at the same time. I remember playing this when I was about 15 at a friend's house on the Gold Coast. They had very few games and being bored enough to play this one day. There are better games you can play with 5 dice, and there will be one higher up on this list that's basically a public domain game that you can play with 5 dice. So if you see a copy of Yahtzee, basically that is a box with 5 dice in it, and there are things you can do with 5 dice that are pretty cool. But the base game is okay. The choices in there are decent. It is just the biggest problem is it's literally a solo game. The best thing they could have done with this game is just have a set of dice and a cup for every player, and you could just play simultaneously and discuss your scores at the end of the game or something. It's one of the reasons why a lot of roll and write games have people using the same dice. Headache. So I mentioned before this friend that I kind of inherited after we moved to Queensland because we stayed at their house. He just happened to be about my age. And I said I've forgotten how many board games we played together. Even though he wasn't really the sit-down thinky type, he was more the rough and tumble, get out and do crazy adventures kind of boy, and I was more the thinky kind. But they had a bunch of board games, and this was one of them. This is better than Trouble. I mean, it's in that basic same series, Pop-O-Matic Trouble. You press the thing in the middle of the thing, and it pops the dice up. And you go around and around and around, and you're basically trying to land on other players and capture them, and then they form part of a stack. It's 4 out of 10. It's not a great game, but I think it's a step up from Trouble, which is basically Ludo, which I've talked about at great length on a previous video. If you roll this red die face up, you can take the stack and split it. Basically, you can a stack where someone's on top of your piece. Once they've captured you, that's it. Then they own that whole stack and they move around and around. The idea is somebody eventually captures everyone. You've got some of these tracks are 3 and some of them are 2. So when you roll a number, you've got a little bit of choice in which way you go. It can affect how far you go and whether you can capture a piece. But if this red thing comes up, you can basically take a stack that you're inside of and move yours to the top and take control of that. I don't even know if we ever played that rule. And potentially with that, it could go on forever. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, and I'll see you on the next one.